Oh, TNA, when will you learn? Just when will you learn? I try to help you, but you just don't listen. Yes, alright guys, Delzinski here, and once again it's time for another TNA Impact Wrestling review. This time round, we're looking at Impact from the 9th of February 2016. And first and foremost, before I touch on what I've just said, I need to say that TNA, what a difference it makes to have a jam-packed crowd. Manchester, England, the crowd was hyped for the event, and by God, it just feels so much more refreshing when you do have a busy crowd at your events. It's just great to see, and considering the way it's set in America, it's so dark and dingy. The arena, you can barely see the fans. It's minimal fans at best. Whereas over here, you've still got that massive audience. I mean, I said it was dwindling a little bit at the Wembley show, but nevertheless, this is a much bigger crowd than what you're doing in the States. And I have to give the Manchester crowd credit because they were into the event. And when they're into the event, it makes the show much better. So, fair play to Manchester and TNA. You are very lucky to have such a huge following here in the UK after all the mistakes that have gone down previously. So, that is definitely a highlight, and it made this show much better from the offset. Now, the issue that I had. We have to talk about it. This was one of the big moments of the night for me. Kurt Angle, his farewell tour. He was having a match with Drew Galloway. I believe this was his rematch with Drew Galloway. Kurt Angle had won the first one, if my mind does not deceive me. Now, no problem with the match being on Impact. But there is a big problem. The payoff. The finish of this match. And I banged on about it a few weeks ago. Giving something away for free that should have been on a pay-per-view. This finish should have been on a pay-per-view. When was the last time you had seen Kurt Angle tap out? I cannot remember when I've seen Kurt Angle tap out. Has he tapped out before? Let's think about that. Let me know by the comment section below. When was the last time Kurt Angle tapped out? Because he tapped out on this episode of Impact against Drew Galloway. And for me, to see Kurt Angle tap out on a regular episode of Impact just does not feel right in the slightest. It doesn't matter how good this match was. That finish just needed to be at a big pay-per-view event because it could have been so dramatic, so awesome. Just look at it from this point of view. If you had built to Drew Galloway versus Kurt Angle, his final match for the farewell tour at TNA Lockdown, and you have the Lockdown match, and it's huge. It's been built that Drew Galloway is getting his rematch at the Lockdown event, and they go to and fro, back and forth, ankle locks, claymore kicks, and it ends with Drew Galloway eventually making Kurt Angle tap out in the middle of the ring. Then Drew Galloway stands tall, and Kurt Angle has put over Drew Galloway to say farewell to TNA. He's the next guy to move forward into the world title picture. It would be perfect. Drew Galloway raises Kurt Angle's hand to say farewell as well. The crowd goes crazy, and it's at your big pay-per-view. That is what should have happened. But you just gave it away on a regular version of Impact. Nice one. And I get it. It was in Manchester. It's a big crowd. You want to do lots of tapings. I understand that. But not seeing Kurt Angle tap out. It was a great match. It just didn't need to be here. It needed to be on something bigger and better than this. I mean, Kurt Angle kicked out of 3 Claymore kicks. That's how epic it was. Drew Galloway got put in the ankle lock on numerous occasions, but managed to get out of it, and then eventually made him tap out. It deserves to be on something bigger than an Impact. Giving things away like this for free devalues the pay-per-view later on, because when you do your pay-per-view, it's underwhelming because you've made something huge happen in the past. Think about it, TNA. Think about it. So, we've talked about Kurt Angle, and I felt that needed to be said. But Kurt Angle wasn't just involved in his match with Drew Galloway. He had an altercation as well with Miracle Mike Bennett. And something that I will say is I am warming to the Miracle Mike Bennett gimmick. I love the way he comes out, his entrance. Maria, we touched on last week. She's developing nicely. But one thing I will say is don't overuse the miracle gimmick. Don't overuse the term miracle, because I'm beginning to think, what exactly is a miracle about Mike Bennett? Nothing so far makes me scream, wow, he really is a miracle, because he hasn't proved anything yet. And yes, there's time. It was cool to see him trying to talk up the game about Mike Bennett versus Kurt Angle, and that he used to watch him as a kid. But now he was going to say, well, he used to say, I think, to his friends or something along the lines of that, one day I'm going to beat that man in the ring. And, it was a decent promo. It was a really good altercation between the two. Kurt Angle's job being in his farewell tour is almost like he's bringing up all the guys that need to be up there. And it's good stuff. And I like that. And Mike Bennett is getting good airtime. I just worry at the moment that we call him a miracle. And he says miracle so much. Even Maria says the term miracle. But there is no miracle about Mike Bennett. He hasn't done anything exceptional, or hasn't done something that you could class as a miracle. That's what I want to see. If he beats Kurt Angle, you could say that he's got a miracle. So that will be interesting if that happens. But nevertheless, good to see Mike Bennett and Maria continuing to be prominent on each and every single episode of Impact. That is good. And obviously, I think we're building towards Mike Bennett and Galloway in even more of a feud to come in the future. But Angle's involvement is key in that as well. So, moving on, we had another big segment in the night, and this is probably the biggest segment, but I felt that the Galloway Angle match was just something that was so big that it overpowered everything else, because it was a great match. I'm not gonna beat around the bush and say it was a poor match. It was a good, solid match. But Big Money Matt, he just gets better and better each week as a heel. I'm loving Matt Hardy as a heel. He just really, it's almost like he's getting a bit psychotic now. He's come out this week. He's demanded that EC3 be fired. And I love the way that he explains, and the fact that TNA are doing it this way, that Matt explains why he's so angry, because, he's been driven to this persona, this whole crazed persona that Matt Hardy has got now, because before he was trying to do it the right way and do things the right way, but it wasn't ever working. EC3 would always, just manage to by hook or crook get past him. So by taking the swerve, getting Tyrus on side, using Rebby as much more as a prominent figure, all of this has, brought Matt Hardy to the top of TNA, and he couldn't have got there without having this attitude. And I just love that he's now really intense, and he's just like, he's just almost over aggressive at times. Like this week, he had an altercation with Dixie Carter. He just kept shouting at her that he wanted EC3 to be fired, and this built obviously to EC3's big return, because EC3 came over the pond and he came to the UK, and he was at this Manchester event. And I just think it's a brilliant storytelling from TNA, and it continues to get better and better each week. And I cannot give enough praise to Matt Hardy for doing that, because I've always been one to question why they went with Matt over Drew originally. But the payoff is working, and it's getting good. It's getting good. I'm invested in the feud. I liked the fact that now even Dixie's beginning to now sway back towards with Ethan. We saw Rockstar Spud involved in the segment. Rockstar Spud defending Dixie. I have to admit, Rockstar Spud is from the UK, but I've gone off his character quite a lot. I don't like that he's just called the underdog now. I much preferred it when he was like the little pompous EC3 runaround. Maybe we're going to get a bit more of that as things go on, because it seems like, Rockstar Spud's going to be siding with Ethan Carter more throughout this feud. But all in all, this whole main event picture has me interested. And that's the big thing. Well done, TNA. I like the stuff between Big Money Matt and EC3. Keep it going, and make sure you do save your big payoff for your pay-per-view. What else did we have this week? Well, had some interesting stuff with Grado, because Grado's apparently been screwed. He got the Feast or Fire briefcase. He was fired. I know what comes because I was at the Wembley show, but it's interesting to see that Eli Drake is hiding something. What is it? Did he switch the briefcases? Did he play some sort of trick on Grado or Grado, as the idiot Pope says? Why is he calling that? It's ridiculous. But that again, I'm sitting there thinking, what's he done? What did he do? How did he screw him? This piece of paper that Grado's carrying around now, what does that say on it? What could that mean? And why is Eli Drake so desperate to stop Grado revealing what happened? Could Eli Drake be fired? Could the briefcases get switched back? They involved Billy Corgan in this. Grado going up to him backstage saying, "You've got to help me," but no one was helping him. He got dragged away by security. Eli Drake flattened him out. Interesting. Good stuff. You've got my attention again. So TNA are doing good things as well as my criticisms of things like the match between Drew Galloway and Kurt Angle. That's for sure. Now moving on to another talking point. Trevor Lee and Shane Helms. I'm not quite sold on Trevor Lee yet. Not because of his in-ring ability. I think that's good. But this week, this match between Tigre Uno and, Trevor Lee felt like a bit of a squash match. Trevor Lee certainly overpowered Tigre Uno easy peasy. For me, that's kind of crazy. Tigre Uno was quite a credible champion, and all of a sudden, this guy just comes along and just flattens him out. A little while ago, Trevor Lee wasn't really doing too much, but all of a sudden, he's just kind of unstoppable. What Gregory Helms teached him that much in such a short space of time? I just didn't like the way that match went between Trevor Lee and Tigre Uno. Again, it was a rematch, and I felt that, again, this could have been saved for a pay-per-view with a better match. But instead, they kind of rushed it, and Trevor Lee just went over Tigre Uno easy. I think that Shane Helms is a good introduction to be paired with Trevor Lee, who hasn't quite got a personality at the moment. There needs to be a bit more. The black trunks, and the black boots. Okay, it worked for Stone Cold, but Trevor Lee is not Stone Cold. We need something more to help him. So hopefully Shane Helms is going to get him going. And obviously we want the X Division to be built upon. Because that's one criticism that I have of TNA at the moment, is the fact that we just keep seeing the same matches. We've seen Trevor Lee interacting with Tigre Uno. Yes, you have to have consistent storylines, but when I kind of compare this to, let's say, the Knockout division for me is just so flat. Every week, it's Dollhouse versus the Beautiful People. This week, we saw Jade versus Madison Rain. How many more times I've got to see this? And it's always the same. Gail Kim comes out and makes the save. This time, no more Awesome Kong, of course, but it's always the same. I need something else. I need some fresh faces to help liven it up. And that's much like the X Division as well. You want some new challengers to come out and, kind of get in the face of Shane Helms and Trevor Lee. That spice to these two areas that were so prominent years ago for TNA. The Knockouts division was one of their standout divisions. So was the X Division. Rebuild and regenerate these two divisions. That would be incredibly awesome if they can get them back to where they were around about 10 years ago. Now, what else did we have? Any other things to touch on? Well, I'm just having a look. Well, not so much. I don't really think so. I have to admit, it was kind of interesting seeing Rebby Sky backstage sucking up to Dixie. That's again another good bow to the whole big money feather. It's really cool to see that. That they're manipulative, they're sneaky, they're conniving. They're just doing anything to get under the skin of whoever they can, even if they have to button them up a little bit. It's all good. It's perfect heel stuff going on from TNA. The final thing to mention on this week's Impact is the beer money segment, because they brought back the Boozer Cruiser. I freaking love that thing. The Boozer Cruiser is awesome. The Boozer Cruiser, if you don't know what it is, it's basically what James Storm comes riding out on. It's full of beer. I want one of these. I'd ride it everywhere and have a beer all the time. It's quality, and Beer Money want those tag team titles now. That is clearly obvious. They keep calling out the Wolves, but the Wolves haven't got the belts. And it's the Decay that have got the belts. They have the belts. Rosemary holds those two belts like they're her toys. And That's made it interesting for the tag team division. That, if you put them all side by side, if I've got interest in the tag division and I have a few more tag teams, that's good. If I've got some interest for the knockouts, if they can do what they're doing with the tag team with the knockouts, then I'll be interested in that. And the same with the X division as well. I can see it's coming gradually, and that is a good thing. I like the Decay. They're being featured a lot on Impact TV. I like the fact that the belts aren't with the Wolves, although the Wolves are the champs. It gives us meaning to use the Decay more. It's nice. And Beer Money as well, I think it's obvious that Beer Money will capture the gold. But having the belts not sat with the Wolves means that there's alternatives. They could even get the belts onto the Decay at some point when you think Beer Money are going to pick up the titles. Interesting options and scenarios, and that's what I like. And TNA are giving me those things at the moment. I just would reiterate that don't always give it all away for free. So guys, if you enjoyed this week's Impact, let me know via the comment section below. I'm going to say it's a Delzinski approved Impact, but there are a few things that are repetitive. Just seeing Gail Kim week after week come out and batter a knockout is not great at all. I need more from a knockout division. Let me know via the comment section below what you thought of Impact. Get involved. And as per usual, don't know what I was going to say there. This is Delzinski for another TNA Impact Wrestling review. Signing out.